welcome back to yet another edition of an Evolved Review. This is going to be part two of the Undertaker Last Ride series, and I am joined once again by Caleb Stovall and the ace of everything, superhero homie Q. Guys, welcome back to the show.
Well, it's great to be back, man. I'm excited to talk more about this, man. I had a blast on the last episode talking about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So today we're going to sort of get into a little bit more of, kind of the documentary and like the last kind of days of the Undertaker's career. Um, so if you haven't watched, first of all, if you haven't watched the documentary Last Ride, go watch that shit. Turn this off. Go watch that. Then watch the Broken Skull sessions with Austin, which is also on the network. Then go watch part 1 of our review. Then come back. So we'll see you in like 9 hours. In your copious free time, go watch all that shit. I want to start this off. I'm going to start this episode off with a question, um, for both of you. Do you guys, and Asa, I'll start with you since guest privilege here. Do you think that he is truly done?
No, I don't.
What about you, Caleb?
Um, I'm actually going to go the opposite. I think that he is. I think that as we see the documentary go along, I think that the things that are now more important to him is not the business itself, but now his family. And whenever you put that first before anything, everything else, just kind of fades away pretty much, I guess.
So I'm going to say that if I see him having another match, I can see him wanting to. If he has another match, the only match I could see him having is WrestleMania next year. Him and AJ in the ring, and he puts AJ over on his way out. That's the only match I can see him having. Because number one, we talked about how old school he is. The old school mentality, you put the guy over on your way out.
Right.
So there's that. Also, he talks about his reverence for AJ Styles. In the Broken Skull sessions, I posted this on my Facebook a few days ago. Um, Austin says AJ Styles is the best wrestler on 2 feet right now, and I agree entirely. I mean, I'm sure Zach Gowen, is thrilled to hear it, but uh, I agree with that statement entirely, and we'll get into more of the him and AJ certainly as this episode goes on. But what I want to talk about here is sort of the final years, or what we assume will be the final years. Mostly what the documentary really covers here. So you've got this amazing career. You're trying to figure out how to wind it down, and I want to talk about this before we go into specifics because the recurring theme in all these episodes, and Triple H describes it the best. How do you put an end on such an iconic career? Because this is what gets you. You go out, you have all this prep, you wonder, you deal with the doubt every day. Do I still have it? Do I still have it? You get out there and you perform. And either one of two things happens. Either you deliver and then you think, shit, I still got it. I got a couple more in the tank. Or you don't. And then you are in the vicious cycle of, well, shit, I can't let that be the end. Now I have to go out and prove that I still have it.
You
That's
can't
a
win.
it's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, that's such a hard kind of mentality to grasp with, but like the way he put it was perfect because I mean it makes all the sense in the world and there is no end to that kind of cycle because there is no out. Like you said, if you go out there and just tear it down, yeah, I still got it. I can do another mania. Or if you just shit the bed, then you're like, well, I can't go out like that. And just seeing that play out, you can kind of see him realizing throughout the doc that, oh, this is the cycle that I'm stuck in, and I need to find an out. But I don't know if there is. I mean, we've seen some great farewells in wrestling, such as like Ric Flair, his last match, or even Shawn Michaels, when he bowed out to Undertaker, that was also a really great and fitting farewell. But if you really think about it, even I don't think most guys get to have the opportunity to get that perfect kind of storybook ending.
Yeah, he talks about being so envious of Sean on several occasions because Sean had that match, and even he even goes to the length at one point to say that he wished they had both walked, like that had just been it right there, because he feels like, now looking back on it, he feels like he could have walked away on that. But, Sean had that match, and much to us all being upset, because we're all used to it in the business, like, yeah, yeah, you retired, you'll be back,
Hmm.
we'll get Shawn Michaels versus AJ Styles or Randy Orton or something like that. Sean
Hmm.
was done, man. He
Yeah.
he he was like, I'm the greatest. I'm out. Like, I'm going to go out at WrestleMania in front of millions of people to the guy that I respect probably more than anyone, to the fucking Undertaker. There is no better end. And Shawn closed the book. And Taker, I mean, he has struggled immensely with it, and he's very open about that. Um, the match with Triple H and Shawn in the cell, where Shawn's a guest referee, this is the first time he really says, not publicly, but sort of family, friends, Vince in the back, I'm done. I think that's it. Um, what do you guys think about that? Do you think that that should have been it with the end of an era match?
That would have been another perfect ending, in my opinion. I think that would have been a great way to go out.
Especially with the matchup that he helped create, which was the Hell in a Cell. And if you think about it, both of them helped create that allure of the Hell in a Cell, because Undertaker first started it, and then Triple H really took it to another level as well. So, like, the two of them fighting there at Hell in a Cell with that matchup, I think that would have been the way to go, for sure. But clearly Undertaker still had a lot left in the tank after that, and I also don't think it's just what's the best match for him to go out on. I think it's also he's just so loyal to Vince McMahon as well, so that it's like when Vince needs him, it doesn't matter. He drops everything and he's there for him.
Can we just for a second talk about that phrasing of I still got more in the tank, and I think that may be part of the problem with Undertaker and probably a lot of other wrestlers out there who are maybe getting banged up or who are aging, and that is even if you do have more in the tank, quote unquote, that doesn't mean that you should still keep going. And I think that maybe there's kind of a dissonance there where they think that just because I feel good and I feel like I can go, that doesn't necessarily mean that you still have to.
And I mean, we've talked about this a lot. Vince McMahon is a shitty human being. And if he really cared about The Undertaker the way that he professes to, he would not keep calling him in as this carnival attraction. Because Michelle even says it throughout the episode. He can't say no to Vince. How many of these matches are a result of Vince McMahon simply not having anything, failing to produce a new star in 20 years, and, you know, going back to the same old bag of tricks?
And I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to ask you, and I think I already got your answer. Uh, I was going to ask, like, do you guys think that Vince McMahon has been taking advantage of the Undertaker?
Well, I think it's clear that he kind of has, to a certain extent as well. But I also think Taker at the same time, he could just very well just be like, "Nah, man, I'm done." And he even tries to say that after a few matches to Vince, like he's just like, "I'm done, man. Like that's it. I can't do it anymore." But I don't know. Vince is a very complicated person. That's all I'm gonna put it, kind of thing. I mean, yeah, people could say he's a shitty person or whatnot, and that's probably true a lot of the times. But I'm just gonna say it's complicated.
Vince plays him. He knows the guy. You could tell when he has that conversation when they came back through the curtain, and he's like, Vince, I think that's it. And you could see that Vince doesn't. You would think like this is like your oldest, like longest running performer at this point. Him coming up and telling you like I'm done, that he would have this like shocked reaction or something on his face. He doesn't. He's like, all right, man, whatever you decide, because he knows
Mhm.
he can't walk away. And it's not his fault, 100%. Uh, it's both of them. I mean, Taker can't walk away either. Um, so let's get into the sort of the vicious cycle that we've seen. So the Roman match. This is where the documentary really begins. I love them checking into the hotel and like Roman just comes up right next to him and is checking in the hotel room and Taker's like, "You can't even give me fucking 15 minutes of kayfabe here. Like, what are we doing?" Um, and like I think so. This match with Roman to me, and I'm no fan of Roman Reigns whatsoever. Um, this match to me was the worst Undertaker Mania match since he came back at 20. Easy, no contest, easily the
you, you
worst.
you think it was worse than the Brock match?
Yeah, yeah, because a couple of things. Number one, the build up wasn't that good.
Hmm.
Um, it lacked Paul Heyman. You know, Paul Heyman, carried the feud between Brock and Taker for the most part. Even the end of the streak, Heyman's reaction is what makes it. Heyman in the corner losing his damn mind is
Yeah.
what makes it because he just spent 3 months saying Brock Lesnar, Brock Lesnar, Brock Lesnar. You can't beat Brock Lesnar, blah blah blah. And it's like in that moment you understand that Paul Heyman never believed that Lesnar could beat him.
Hmm.
He never truly believed it. He said it, but he never truly believed it. And that's storytelling that you can't plan it, you know? And Paul Heyman's ability to sell that angle was amazing. We didn't have that here. We just had Roman, who is weak in all aspects, in the ring, on the mic, whatever. And you're trying to get him over as a babyface. And the crowd doesn't give a shit, especially not against the Undertaker. And then you have the fact that Taker wasn't on his game and Roman needs to be carried rather than he definitely can't carry him. And then you also knew that this was going to be WWE's attempt. This was during the 5 year Roman Reigns project where they constantly were just heaping these accomplishments on Roman, hoping that people would get behind him. It was just they just kept throwing stuff on him. So everybody going into this, no one thought that Brock was going to beat him. Everyone thought Roman would beat him because
That's true. That's true.
it was just like, oh, WWE is going to give him this now. They can't get
Yeah,
him over, so they're going to have him beat Undertaker at WrestleMania. Being the second guy to do it isn't worth a shit, you know.
that is all very true. Actually, I concur.
I'm
100
s- I
percent.
didn't I didn't mean to go off on Roman Reigns like that, but it is what it is.
Yeah. And plus, like, also, if you look at that show from start to finish, I mean, the crowd was there for over 7 hours at that event. That's way too long to put on an event. I'm sorry, just no. There's not even a sporting event that is that long. The Super Bowl itself is not that long. I mean, there might be festivities going on for the Super Bowl and stuff like that, but there's it's nowhere near that. And if you look at that WrestleMania card, I mean, yeah, they headlined it, but there was so much other stuff going on at that card that it was a mood point at that particular moment.
I mean,
And the
even 3 hours is rough when you're in that environment.
Right. And the thing that, really, the thing that people take from the matchup is him, taking off his gear and leaving it in the ring and stuff like that, which to me, I was just like, no, you know, you could say what you want to about the matchup. You could say it was Roman Reigns. I didn't care about that at that moment. I cared about what I was seeing from the Undertaker at that moment. I had tears in my eyes as he was leaving because it was just like this man has had such a legendary career, and this is it. This is like when he was laying it down. It was a sign to you as a fan. It was like, okay, this is it. Like he's literally taking his shit off and he's going home finally. And it was a sad moment. It was a congratulations moment, but it was also a sad moment for you as a fan.
And I believed truly at the time that that was possibly it.
Right.
Hmm.
But also, no one, I mean, like, it was really sad to me. Like, seeing him leave the stuff in the ring was so iconic. I mean, no one's ever going to forget that moment. But I didn't feel the things I should have felt right then because, like, the main thing was like, okay, we're seeing the end of this legendary career. But at the same time, no one wants it to end like this.
Right.
Nobody wants this to be his last match, you know?
You know, Taker even admits that. I mean, what something that was pretty obvious if you watch the match. He was out of shape. He was moving slow. He was hurting. And man, let me tell you, when when you botch something in a match, it eats at you for a long, long time. And if you're the Undertaker and you botch moves consecutively in the main event at WrestleMania and you're one of the most iconic wrestlers of all time, I can't imagine what he felt when he went back and watched that match.
I still think about botching spots 15 years ago in front of 40 people. I can't
Same.
imagine what it's like to think about botching some shit at WrestleMania in the main
Yeah.
Especially
event.
the main event, the last match on the card.
So his hip is in terrible condition at this point. He's arguably in worse condition going into the 33 match than he is today.
Hmm.
You know, he 4 weeks after Mania, he literally was on the operating table to have his hip replaced.
Yeah.
Um, it's those leg drops, man. Um, and one of the lines that Kane, you know, brings up here, and I called bullshit on this. Kane talks about when you're loyal to Vince McMahon, basically about him paying it back to you. I was
Hmm.
like, that's such bullshit. um, there there is tons of demonstrable historical evidence that that is not true. Um, but it is what it is. This is this is from the WWE lens, so it's gonna paint Vince as this like jovial, happy old man that's like heavily invested in the legacy of the WWE or whatever. Um, which is fine. I don't want to make this about Vince McMahon. Um, but even early at that point in time, he talked about wanting to work with AJ Styles and saying that he reminded him of Shawn Michaels, which there's I mean, is there a better compliment you can get from the Undertaker at this point in time, or from anyone
No,
really?
No.
no.
Um,
And I think we all knew too how good AJ was, but when you hear it from someone like The Undertaker, who's been in the ring with them all, from Hogan and beyond, then that's just got to be like the biggest compliment ever. That pretty much signifies that AJ is the best in the world.
yeah, I mean, other than Sting, everybody who's worth a shit in this business has been in the ring with the Undertaker.
Yeah, that's true. And like, but it really is like such a like there's nothing else that anyone can ever tell AJ that'll probably make him feel better than that. Like those
Right.
two things, like the Undertaker telling you, "Hey, I would like to work with you," and B, you remind me of Shawn Michaels. Like those two things coming from the Undertaker is that means something.
And C, later on, I will come out of basically retirement to work with you, and I want
Right.
you to be my last match. And I'm not trying to say I was like a prophet or anything, but when AJ came in, one of the matches that was on like my list of like things I wanted him to do was the Phenomenal One versus the Phenom. I
Mm,
mean, that's it's just built in right there, you
right.
know. Um, it's perfect. One of the things I want to mention real quick in the lead up, like talking about him training and everything, seeing the Undertaker running bump drills was fantastic.
Right?
Uh, it was maybe it was probably my favorite part of the documentary because it's just like I, there's a combination of number one, you're seeing the guy and he's running bump drills, and number two, it's like the humility in it that even the Undertaker, who is the legend, is going through these basics and still running through the basics and making sure that he's got everything down pat. Um, the workout that he was doing to try to get back in shape, I mean, I would be in the hospital 10 minutes into
Hmm.
that workout.
Yeah.
Um, Another thing I want to mention real quick, just going down my notes here. Throughout the documentary, I counted 6 different renditions of Taker's theme that they used. And I thought that was awesome. The piano version is probably the best one.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I was about to say I love the piano version of his like old theme music. That was so cool.
Yeah, I really loved also like when they were doing the build up for his return with Cena. They had like a Game of Thrones kind of
Mm,
sound to it, and I really loved that. I'm big on music, so as like a backdrop to anything. So thematically, that was something I noted. Um, he trains for a marathon with Cena, and regardless of how I may feel about Cena's work, if you're gonna go a marathon with somebody, Cena's the dude. Because Cena could go an hour with you. He
hmm.
he might do the same move for the whole hour, but he could go from a athleticism standpoint. Um, so he gets there, and the match with Cena is 3 minutes. Now, this was another one. This is WrestleMania 34. This is another one of those WrestleManias where they just packed the card in with all this filler and junk. It's like, oh, we just want to get everybody on Mania. So it's like 14 fucking matches. Um, which is just nuts. But you get all this on here, and so he ends up having a 3 minute match with Cena. As much as I think people really would have loved to see him come back and go 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, the way that he came out there and moved and went 100 miles an hour for all 3 minutes, technically the match was 2 minutes 46 seconds bell to bell, it did prove that he could still go.
Yeah.
I
And I,
remember thinking that during
Hmm.
the match.
and I think if I know people say all this about Cena and everything like that, but if he was going to go in there with someone he was comfortable with, Cena was the guy. He knew Cena would take care of him regardless.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was such a surreal moment for me in the doc because I was saying to myself, I know I watched that WrestleMania. Like for better or for worse, I watched that Mania from start to finish, and I was like, I don't remember Taker versus Cena, and it really bothered me. And then it finally got to the part in the doc where we see the Cena and Taker match, and I was like, that's why I didn't remember it, uh, because it happened so quickly. Like if I went to go get a snack and came back, the match was over. Uh, but I do remember thinking also that Taker did look good. He looked a whole lot better than he did in this last outing. So, but
and
that was kind of my takeaway.
and it was overshadowed too by like everything that was going on at that Mania. I mean, you had the debut of Ronda Rousey in a WWE ring. You had AJ Styles versus Nakamura
Hmm.
there. You had a lot of other stuff going on as well. And so, just their storyline, Cena and Taker at the time, it just really felt like just like an afterthought. It wasn't really something that people tuned in for, and the storyline was really weird going into it. Like, so Cena calls out the Undertaker, and the Undertaker doesn't respond, so he's like, I'm going to WrestleMania as a fan and stuff like that. And then, like, he hears that, oh no, the Undertaker is here, and then Elias comes out and does his thing, and then Cena finally gets Taker, and it was just weird. Like it just like the whole storyline, it was just kind of like, really, like this was your big plan for the Taker? Like
Hmm.
it didn't make a lot of
It,
sense to me.
I liked the idea of him not knowing if Taker was going to be there. I mean, we all knew they never would have built it up if they didn't know they had him, right?
hmm.
Right.
Vince McMahon might not be my favorite person, but he's not an idiot when it comes to booking, you know. So they never would have booked this if they didn't have him. So that knew from day one they had him. But I liked the idea that like Cena in the story that they didn't know if he was going to be there, and that Cena was going to like be in the crowd and stuff. I thought that was cool. The problem was I don't think that I think they got to the point where they were like, okay, well, presentation wise, how does this happen? Cena can't be sitting there in jeans and a t-shirt and then the gong hits because he's not going to get in there and wrestle him in his jeans and a t-shirt. So then it was like, okay, well now we got to have like Cena gets a phone call or whatever, and then he goes backstage, and then we have to have all these antics. That the execution of that part of it was sloppy and weird.
Hmm.
But I think Taker coming out there and delivering and being probably the best we had seen him in years was incredible. We talk about moments a lot. Two things I remember from this Mania. I remember Cedric Alexander and Mustafa Ali, which was on the pre-show, tragically,
Right.
because that was Cedric's first Mania, and I'll never forget it. And then, I remember this Undertaker spot with Cena, and thinking to myself that he could still go. Um, so at this point, he comes back. He has this little match with Cena. You could tell he wasn't satisfied with it because they didn't have a lot of time. He goes on to have the match with Rusev at Greatest Royal Rumble, which was a casket match too, I believe.
Hmm.
And they did. I mean, we got that same Undertaker there.
Right.
They did a really good job. Um, so then he's got it in his head like, okay, I am back. I can do this. Him and Triple H work in Australia. This is a way. This is an easy thing for him to accept because it's Triple H. They've worked together a million times. Another great match.
Mhm.
Not their best match, but it wasn't bad by any means. It was still a great match.
Right.
Right.
And then we get into where we start to see the cracks, right? Like, so this they allow this Triple H thing to build into Brothers of Destruction versus DX. And this is a huge mistake. Number one, Shawn Michaels hasn't been in a wrestling ring in at this point. What that would have
5
been
years? No.
longer than that. It would have been
Longer. Yeah.
so his last match with Taker was in 2010, and then this would have been in 2018. So 7 8 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Shawn hasn't been in a ring in that amount of time. Kane is like a freaking Kane should have retired forever ago, but he's focused on being a politician mostly at this point. He's out of shape. He's doesn't have the timing anymore.
Right.
Taker is still good, but he can't carry this match. His head's in another place. He's got personal shit going on. Triple H has got an empire on his back. So you've got all these guys that think they can go out there and take a night off because they've all worked together for 30
Hmm.
years or whatever. No, that match
No.
was terrible. It
Yeah.
looked like if you go to like a shitty indie show, it looked like a match from a shitty indie show.
It looked to me. It looked like all of their worst fears, which is these guys don't need to be in there.
Right.
That's what it looked like.
Shawn hits the
And
moonsault out and almost dies.
yeah, yeah. Triple H tears his pec.
Yeah, I
I
was
mean,
gonna say that.
The mask
Like
comes off.
yeah, yeah.
Triple H says it best. He was like, like looking back at it, it's like a bad comedy movie. Like just the way, even going into it, like it was a mistake to even book this matchup. It wasn't gonna work.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because on paper, just those names, it sounds like it'd be fantastic until
Right.
you really start to think about like the actuality of it.
And I mean, really, honestly, this match, if it, the greatest crime in it is that Shawn Michaels, his last match is now not his 26th match, but it's now this. So you went from a 5-star classic to a 0-star shit show to put a cap on your career. Fortunately, I think a lot of people will forget this match ever happened. Um,
So that's for the best.
yeah, for sure. So one of the things that in this point in time where they talk to Edge in the documentary, and I wrote this down because um it really hit me, is Edge was talking about his Undertaker's like struggle with putting it down, and he says, I really want this to go right for him. Like, it's really important for him that Undertaker gets that kind of peace and the exit that he's comfortable with. And the just the conviction in Edge's voice when he says that, he's being legitimate. And I think we all kind of feel the same way. Like, we want, like, he's given us so much, you know,
Right.
over the years. We want to see him have a storybook ending that he can live with.
Yeah, I
Um,
like to believe that, not to jump ahead of you there, but I
yeah,
do like to believe that if 2020 had all around been a better year, we would have gotten that this year with AJ.
yeah. So let's talk about the Boneyard match, because we're getting there anyway, right? Um, so I'll run down the other stuff real quick because it's not really worth focusing on. So the tag match happens. He hates it. Um, he, he's not on Mania that year. He has the match with, or well, the segment or whatever with Elias on Raw, which was great, and nobody saw that coming because we all thought, okay,
Hmm.
he's gone. Um, the whole portion, because I do want to talk about this actually, the whole thing where he forgot his gear, I loved that.
Yes.
Because what's the number one rule in the business? You bring your gear.
You always bring your gear. Like I hate to tell you, but yeah, like, even when I go to viral shows to commentate, my gear bag is in the trunk of my car
Yeah,
just in case. Like
yeah.
that's
It,
just the way it is.
if I go to a show, I've got my shit with me. I mean, even now that I'm in like a manager role, I've got the coat, the hat, all that shit
Hmm.
with me. Even when I go up the road to Southern Honor, I'm going there buying a ticket, hanging out. But like,
Right.
if something were to fucking happen, I got my gear, So it was so funny, and even Vince is just like, "Come on, man, how do you not have your gear?" And he's got to fly home because this Undertaker. It's not like he can go to, like, the local like sports store and just pick up some shit, you know. Um, so I thought that was great, but he has the match with Goldberg, and oh my
Mm,
god, and the Goldberg match is just atrocious. It
yeah.
is almost as bad as the 4-way match. I think the only reason that I wouldn't say it's as bad as the tag match with Brothers of Destruction DX is because no one expected Goldberg and Undertaker to be good. People expected DX versus, like, there was
Mm,
so much hype with DX versus Brothers of Destruction. But Goldberg has never been a guy that you were going to have a 5-star match with. Goldberg's hype is in the character and legacy of Goldberg. I won't get into it. But yeah, nobody expected that to be crazy. Um,
but people also didn't expect Undertaker to almost die either.
that's true. It was
Yeah.
rough.
Yeah. That was rough. Even watching it back, it was just like, oh my God. Like, it just, I don't know if it was bad timing on the two of them. I don't know, what
Well,
happened.
Goldberg got concussed early on too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So
And they really even mentioned that in the documentary,
yeah,
like they didn't mention that Goldberg had got concussed earlier. So, it was a bad situation. It was very scary looking. It scared Michelle McCool so much, his wife, that she was texting all the doctors. She was like, "Is he okay? Please, someone talk to me," kind of thing. So, It's very scary looking at it.
And those are international text messages. They're very expensive. Uh, um, so he, one other thing I want to mention here at this point in time, I thought it was cool that they had the comicbook.com headline for this with
Mm,
the Starcast 2 where he had to cancel the signing. Um,
yeah.
that whole ordeal was interesting. That was kind of another instance of Vince McMahon kind of being a piece of shit. It's like, okay, the man's technically done. Both him and Kurt Angle want to go to this signing. It's just like a convention,
Hmm.
But Starcast is also a wrestling show and it's a wrestling promotion. And you start to get people thinking like CM Punk has been on these signings before, and people start to think, oh, okay, well if he's going to be at the signing, is he going to wrestle? He's going to be on the show. So from that aspect, I get it a little bit. Um, so that
The
happened.
optics aren't good.
The optics are not good, but it's crazy that they mentioned it in the documentary. I thought that was interesting. I didn't think that was ever going to come up because it makes Vince look bad. Um, so they get to Extreme Rules where Taker basically, and even in the actual product, this was kind of marketed as Undertaker is like, I don't want to go out with this Goldberg match. Everybody knew that the match was the drizzling shits. Um, and so it's like, all right, so we're gonna do Taker and Roman versus Shane McMahon and Drew McIntyre. Not exactly the marquee, not exactly the match where you're like, yeah, man, this is gonna be great.
Right.
But it was a damn good match.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Um, everybody delivered, even Roman. I mean, he was Roman, but he was on his game. Every like the
Yeah.
timing was
His.
all very good.
Yeah. That's what I was going to comment on was that Roman's timing is as well as everybody else, but Roman's timing was on point.
Yeah. When they're talking about him being in the garden, where he gives the farewell address in the garden, I love, love, love that iconic photo of where it's Elvis performing, and then right under that it's Undertaker dropping the leg. I love knowing that that exists in the garden.
Right.
Right.
So that was just super iconic. So, um, we get to after Extreme Rules. Once again, Taker's like, okay, I thought maybe I didn't have it in the tank anymore. I have it. I had this match. It was great. It got a great reception. I delivered. I can walk away now. And he really believes he can walk away.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gets a phone call from AJ Styles. I love the rib that they played on him. But what did you guys think about this and just the way that this match developed and him saying that AJ was the only guy he'd come out of retire well, not retirement, but that he would come back for.
Well, me being a big, huge AJ Styles mark, first of all, I love seeing that. But what was, I think, the most interesting thing about that was Michelle McCool's reaction to it, because even she looks at Taker and goes, "It's nobody better." And that's interesting because she at this point is trying to convince him, hey, you've got kids, you've got me, we need to live our lives and stuff like that, and he needs to be done, and she's worried and stuff like that. But when AJ's name was brought up, she had no problem saying nope, that would be the guy to do it with, kind of thing. And it really is true. I mean, if you look at it, AJ's also the perfect size for Taker. Like it just the styles, just would have been so good together. And so and
Which is
and again, it just goes to show you how much the Undertaker was already looking at AJ Styles and how much he respected him and stuff like that. And the fact that AJ wanted to come up to him and be like, "Hey man, I want you to do one more match and be with me," kind of thing. So
And the fact that AJ went into it thinking, not, I want my WrestleMania match with The Undertaker. It was no, AJ wanted Taker to be so satisfied with the match that he was okay with retiring. it was important to him that he gave him a send off that he could believe, because AJ is so good that Taker could literally pull a Hogan and Shawn Michaels, and Taker could literally just sit in the middle of the ring and just do his like marquee shit, like his main shit, and AJ could just work around him, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, all I need you to do is physically walk to the ring and like maybe throw a big boot or whatever.
Right.
I'll tombstone myself. I'll just get up there and you just fall over. You know, that's all you got to
You
do.
know, AJ is so good, but when you think about the match, you kind of wonder would their styles clash.
I hate you.
I'll see myself out.
Where is Kevin to tell
I,
you to go to bed?
I was trying not to say it, but
You're done. This is your last appearance on Evolved Review.
oh man,
You're done. You're done. That being said, Jesus. Um, I loved the build up to this, seeing Undertaker working out with the NXT guys at the
yes,
Performance Center. Um, can you even fathom, like, you're at the Performance Center training and it's like, oh well, Undertaker's gonna come down today and work out with you guys.
that would be mind blowing. Just to be working at the performance center, and then all of a sudden the icon himself comes in, like one of the biggest legends in the industry walks in to help you out, to give you pointers. I couldn't fathom that. Like that's something that hopefully none of them took that for granted, because that's something that most people would never get.
yeah, and there's a lot of people at times, we've seen throughout the years that will go to the performance center and they won't put that much time or effort into the training. I mean, they'll train or they'll work out a little bit, but they won't really go full force. But I guarantee you, the minute he walked in there, if you were not on your game, then you didn't deserve to be there. Like if you weren't giving it 110% in front of the Undertaker, it like I guarantee you Triple H, who was probably at the Performance Center as well, was probably just like, get out, go, leave.
Oh yeah, he was running
Hmm.
them through it. Um, Something that I noticed in the documentary, I couldn't help but notice this, is when they're having that meeting and they're in the room, in the conference room, Taker walks in, right, and he's like, "Oh man, you guys are all packed in here. Nobody saved me a seat." Matt Riddle is like right there when they open the door, but then like later on when he's like actually talking to them and giving them pointers and shit, Riddle's not in the room. Like, which I mean, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but like, well, how does that work? Are you hanging out and then like Undertaker comes in and you're like, all right, I'm out. Like, I don't know. The dude's under a lot of fire right now, but
Yeah.
I just thought that was just weird. It's like nothing would have taken me away from that room. You
I
know,
guess if I could throw him a little bit of bail, I would say that it looked like it was just a seminar for the big guys, right? Because there was only like the giant NXT guys in the room at that time,
maybe
and
so.
so maybe, and I think that Riddle was maybe just hanging out until maybe Taker got there. I
Shit,
don't
I
know.
would I would have been in the corner like watching this shit anyway.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
you know, you're prying me from this room. Um, so let's talk about the match with AJ. So they're planning for, AJ cuts these amazing promos. They're planning for a wrestling match. COVID-19 happens, which this very podcast probably wouldn't exist without it. Um, yeah. So this gets changed to like a cinematic themed boneyard match. What did you guys think about when you first kind of heard that they weren't going to be having a match in a ring?
When I first heard about it, I was like, so is this going to be a buried alive match? Is this, and we're just using a different term for it? What exactly is this? And I didn't really know what they were going to do. But then as I thought about it, I thought it was going to be like a cinematic style theme match. And if there was ever a better person to do a cinematic theme match, it would be the Undertaker. He already has the character. He, I think even people said it best after the match aired that like he could be a future action star at this point.
He could use
Yeah,
his powers in the cinematic match.
yeah,
That's true.
yeah, that's exactly what I thought. I thought it would be great because again, it's just first of all, you do anything with Taker, it's going to be good. And then you throw in AJ Styles, who is by far the best worker in the business currently. It's a recipe for magic. I didn't care if it was going to happen in front of a stadium with people in it or if it was going to be a cinematic theme. You do that with AJ and the Undertaker, you're going to get magic.
I think for me, when I first heard about the Boneyard match and kind of figured out a little bit as to what it was going to be, I was worried because if I can be honest, I've never seen a match style like that I really enjoyed.
Same.
Uh, but as far as this match type goes, this was the best cinematic match that I've ever seen. Uh, and once again, it's not particularly my cup of tea, but I was able to unplug enough to enjoy for what it was. With that being said, I don't hold anything against traditional wrestling fans who wanted a more traditional style wrestling match from those two, but unfortunately, due to circumstances, this is what we have, and they made the best of a bad situation.
I think them in front of like 70,000 people in a ring would have been the ideal thing. But
Hmm.
also, I would rather have had the Boneyard match than them in an empty arena
Hmm.
because that
Mhm.
doesn't do shit for me. I can't do it. And
Same.
so like the WWE production team, so like they deserve so much credit for this, for turning that little plot into this boneyard, and like the lighting and everything. I mean, the way it was shot, it was just all so good, and it's the only highlight from WrestleMania 36 to me. A lot of people loved the other cinematic match with Cena and Wyatt, and I thought it was good. But to me, this was the match,
Mhm.
and they just they killed it. And I was so worried about this too because immediately you think about like the Hardys, the Hardy
Oh,
compound
hmm.
matches, which
Right.
was what it was, but it's a
Hmm.
parody of wrestling. So I wanna wrap this one up. I want to get each of you's final thoughts on basically Undertaker's career, whether you think he's done or not, and like the documentary, what how you thought about the documentary itself.
Yeah, I really love this documentary. Once again, this I thought was a much better documentary than I thought the WWE would put out. This is something that was more raw, it was more real, and it was very personable. And we get to see a side of the Undertaker that we hardly ever get to see, and it's a 3 year journey on top of that. So we get to follow this man from 2017 up until just a few months back, and it was just such an amazing trip seeing that. So this documentary was great, and I'll probably watch it again sometime down the line because I enjoyed it that much. As far as the Taker's career goes, I think that he will want to do one more when the time comes and when the environment gets better. I wouldn't be surprised at all if we do see him and AJ in a proper match at next WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely see that myself because I mean, I think even you saw at the Money in the Bank that horrible piece of shit of what that was. But you even saw it with AJ kind of teasing it that he's still having flashbacks of the Undertaker and stuff like that. So I think we will see that again. Um, I really liked seeing Mark Calloway and seeing how he really is and stuff like that. Like one of my favorite things in the documentary. I know this is little and it really has nothing to do with his career or anything, but was the interaction with him and Michelle McCool during an interview, like where they were at their house, and she's like, "You want mommy to come down there?" And he just goes, "Yes." like, like he's just like he has a sense of humor and stuff like that. He just seems like such a great guy. and stuff like that. So, um, and then just seeing the character over the years, seeing it evolve. I mentioned this to Ace earlier, kind of off air, but I mentioned to him that like I kind of look at when he transformed into the American Badass, like I kind of looked at it as like a Ghost Rider change. If you look at it, like it's still the Undertaker, but it's like it's a it's a biker version of him and
Hmm.
stuff like that. So it reminded me a lot of Ghost Rider, and just seeing the way that his career has turned out, the people he's been in the ring with, how he commands the locker room. I mean, literally, even still to this day, even though he's not there half the time, he still is the leader of the locker room. And that just goes to show like what kind of career he's had, what kind of impact he's made in this sport and everything like that. And there will never be another Undertaker. It will not happen. There'll be locker room leaders, but there will never be another leader like the Undertaker. And there will never be another character like the Undertaker. I don't care how good you are or anything like that. There's no way that anyone can do what he did and do it for as long as he did it and stuff like that. If anyone would come close to that, it might be AJ Styles at this point.
I agree. I think that in today's climate, I don't think it's possible, even if it is possible, I think you're going to run into so many barriers to you doing it, because now we expect such a raw, like, everybody wants you to be on social media. Everybody wants you to be at Access or fan signings or come out, at house shows and stuff like that. It's so hard to maintain a gimmick the way he did it. And so I don't know that it's even possible if you got somebody with the work ethic and the devotion to pull it off. I don't know if it's even possible anymore. Um, Also because UFC is such a major thing in our culture now. I think that has a big impact on it. You have to be believable to those people, to the people that are watching. Like real legitimate fights. um, it's changed a lot of things about pro wrestling because our culture's changed. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's even possible, but I know that the Undertaker pulled it off, and nobody else ever has. Um, and yeah, I mean, and if he is done, he owes nobody anything
No,
whatsoever. So
no.
really, to me, is if he's okay with being done, then I want him to be done. And if he thinks he can do it again with AJ, I would love to see it. I'd love to see anything he does.
But I definitely don't think he should try it with anyone but AJ.
Agreed. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anybody else in the position anymore for him to be able to do something like that with. I just don't see it, you know. Um that being said, guys, let's put a cap on this one. Ace, thank you, man, for joining us yet again, and for going for the long haul. We record these back to back, so this has been like a 3 hour process for us. Recording these, and this is the second time you've done it. So always, man, thanks for being here, and definitely check him out on both. Check out both you guys on the Power Rangers Go,
Mhm.
on that podcast, and then of course you on Superhero Homies. Of course, check out the Patreon page for them. Sign up for that shit ASAP and get all that goodness on there. Um, and then as always, man, Caleb, thank you for being here each and every episode as my co-host. And you can check him out on SWN. So thanks for joining us, both of you.
No
Thank you for
problem.
having me.
Well, guys, if you've been listening this long, thanks for sticking with us. And this has been the not only a closure on an amazing storybook career, but it's been an involved review.